それじゃあ行くわよ。ラウンド1、ファイト!
Blade Strangers may not be the next big crossover fighter everyone's been waiting for, but it's certainly one I follow closely since its reveal. It doesn't have gaming's most iconic personalities at the forefront of its roster, but that's kind of the point. This is a celebration of the little guys, and nothing quite sold it to me more than Curly Brace. I'm an absolutely huge Cave Story fan, and so Curly took this from a, this looks pretty fun, to, oh god, I need this game. Then they announced quote, and safe to say I was pretty on board. The roster is a pretty significant part of a crossover fighter, and that's where Blade Strangers kinda nails it, and also kind of falters. The game was initially only revealed with Coda Princess characters, Umihara Kawase characters, and Curly Brace from Cave Story. And yeah, that's kind of a weird crossover, especially as many won't know what Umihara Kawase even is. I mean, I'm probably not even saying it properly. But then it suddenly became a whole lot more interesting when Shovel Knight, Isaac, Gunvolt, and Quote were thrown into the mix. Those are huge names and absolute icons of the indie scene, but I knew the game truly came into its own when my preferred character wasn't Quote or Curly or Shovel Knight, rather Emiko, a girl on the back of a giant cat. Everyone in this roster has a ton of personality, and all of their moves are lovingly lifted from their source material, but underneath all of that is a really competent party fighter. The Smash comparisons don't quite end at the crossover angle, as Blade Strangers also borrows Smash's simplicity. You don't need to learn complex button combinations or quarter circles to execute moves in Blade Strangers. Rather, holding a different direction while pressing any of the face buttons will perform a different move. So down in A will cause Curly to launch a rocket, while back in A will launch a fireball. With the unified control scheme, it's really easy to jump from one character to the next. There is some underlying depth, with combo strings to learn and figuring out the timing of each move, but Blade Strangers isn't a fighter geared towards the competitive scene. This is the kind of game you'll be able to play with friends who don't typically play fighters. That's not to say matches won't get super intense, because two skilled players can certainly have a clash of strength and wits, but I don't think that's where Blade Strangers thrives. In fact, for some, its simplicity may even be its undoing. I had an absolute blast playing Blade Strangers online, but when diving into the single player options, it didn't take long to feel like I'd seen it all. The story mode doesn't really have much of a story, and after playing it through with 9 different characters, I still don't really know what's going on. Some computers are pulling these characters out of their universe and implanting memories of being in a fighting tournament into their heads, and then at the end of the tournament they face a crazy cyberwoman and then fly off into space? Yeah, I don't really know. It's fun seeing these characters interact, but most of the conversations aren't exactly Shakespeare. Curly just lets everyone know that she wants to protect the Mimiga, though there are some pretty good jokes thrown in every now and then. What I do know though is arcade mode is basically no different than story mode, minus having a story. Both have strings of 7 fights, usually consisting of the same characters in the same stages, and they both end in a battle against the scary Cyberwoman. There's of course only so much you can do to mix up the variety of a game built solely around fighting, but there's nothing really to differentiate these two modes. Though story mode does lock, quote, Isaac, Shovel Knight and Gunvolt, while all other modes have them unlocked from the get-go, including online. Multiplayer is the true focus of Blade Strangers, and all in all, my online matches with a friend in America have been really great. I can't say we noticed any lag in over a dozen matches. It's a brilliant online setup, though if you're playing with friends you'll need passwords to connect with each other. A little cumbersome. One feature I really love is each player comes with a disconnect ratio so you can simply avoid matches with sore losers. Blade Strangers gets a lot right, and I love how they transferred some of these characters to this anime art style, especially Shovel Knight, who suddenly has this menacing appearance. Quote still appropriately doesn't talk, Isaac attacks with a bunch of items from his game, and all the stages beautifully recreate areas in full 3D. I'm not quite as fond of the character aesthetic though. Assumedly, to replicate a pixel art look, the team converted frames of 3D models to 2D sprites, and I'm not entirely convinced that it works. With how great some of these backgrounds are, I really want to see these characters in the same clarity. Blade Strangers isn't going to set the world on fire, nor is it something you'll see at EVO, but it does many things other games in the genre typically don't. First and foremost, Blade Strangers is very accessible. If you do want to learn the intricacies though, there's a standard training area, or the more interesting mission mode. Missions are basically an extension of training, only they make performing strings of combos into something of a game. It's a great way to learn what skills characters might be hiding under their simple exterior. There's a lot to like about Blade Strangers, but whether it will be able to sustain a form of lasting appeal is unfortunately something I have my doubts about. I've already had my fill from a single player perspective, and while the multiplayer continues to be enjoyable, I can't really see myself actively playing it months from now. I liked Blade Strangers. If there's a series that you love represented in this game, then by all means give it a chance. And likelihood is you'll end up falling for everything else it has to offer, but it just doesn't quite offer enough to keep me hooked. And yes, that's including a hunky Shovel Knight. What do you guys think of Blade Strangers? Let us know in the comments below, and of course be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Blade Strangers, and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye!